this. Recording in progress, and we're hoping for the best as we try to connect to Facebook. Oh, Jesus Christ, are you kidding me? Unbelievable.
What's that?
It's doing the same thing on this computer that it totally did not do on Sunday. I was sure that if I updated everything and switched computers, it would work. I am mad.
That's crazy.
I don't understand it. I do not understand it. Hold on. Unbelievable. Password copy. Okay, I don't know what to do.
You can't get it to work, huh?
I can't get the broadcast part to work. For some unknown reason, it's so, I'm going to just try to do one more thing.
Okay. The broadcast part is important.
I know. I've literally never had this happen before. Okay, my other suggestion is that I can make you the host instead of me.
Okay.
Hold on. And I'm going to make you the host. Now you're the host. Now go in and make me the co-host.
How do I do that? One sec.
Go to the controls.
Now I'm getting those 3 dots because I'm the host, I guess.
Good, yeah. So go up to, click on the participants bar where you'll see my name and your name next to each other.
Yeah.
And click on next to me by the video and you can make me a co-host there.
Okay, done.
Good. So now we can both share our screens. That's good. So now that you see those 3 little bars, go down to press them and say broadcast to Facebook.
I just said I have live on Facebook.
Yeah, do that.
Okay.
And it should pop up on your page, actually.
Yeah. It's a couple things I'm going through. Gives me my Zoom meeting title on Facebook. And
Okay.
press to go live.
Yes. Okay, this meeting is being live streamed now, it says. Welcome, everybody, to surprisingly finding our faces pop up on your Facebook page right at this very minute. You're coming to you live from at least 2 different time zones. This is Radio Free Nachlaot's 14th annual 9 Days of Jerry. You're going to want to turn down, you're going to want to actually just close out of your Facebook, or else it's going to be you're going to hear an echo.
I just did, yeah.
Okay, so we're broadcasting on Shaul Magid's page. That means we're getting a lot of really, really smart people, academics, people who really need to hear about Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, because, you know, the higher up you go into the ivory tower, the more you have to think about Franklin's tower and how you're going to get there, right?
Right. Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so happy to have you back. It's a big honor. It's a big honor.
Right. I think last year I wasn't here, and the year before I was.
Yeah.
Anyway, so here's what I was thinking about. 2 things. There are 2 anecdotes that got me thinking about what I wanted to talk about. The first one was I was teaching at Indiana University I don't remember the year. Maybe it was 2014, 2013. And Dark Star Orchestra was playing in a venue called the Bluebird, which is a really nice venue in Bloomington. And a couple of students of mine went to the show. I couldn't go for whatever reason, I don't remember. And so the next day, come into class, and one student, there's a student sitting there, and another student walks in, and the woman who was sitting there says, "How was the show last night?" And the guy who walked in just looked at her and said, "Tampa, 1987." That was it, right? And it was so striking because, of course, a lot of you know that Dark Star plays entire shows, right? They're not just a cover band, and
Right.
and what was so striking about that is that for those students, right, the Grateful Dead was Dark Star. I mean, they didn't. I mean, maybe they went to various other like post Jerry iterations, but it was already something. There was another layer, and I spent the rest of the the rest of the class talking about the very kind of concept of traditions and how tradition forms, and the way in which to say Tampa 87, and it already is it's language where the person knows exactly what the show is like, right? Is how kind of religious traditions are born through these events that then get replayed and reperformed in different ways that then somehow take on the kind of garments of the thing itself. So um, it's so interesting because a lot of us who were I did not go to any of the final shows. I know you went to a bunch of the final shows, right?
I went to the last one, the very, very last show, the 16th of July in
Right,
San
right.
Francisco.
And it was this kind of, I mean, because I really think it is. I know there have been many ends, but like there's a lot of false messiahs too. Right? But at
Oh my
some
God. If last time was Shabtai Tzvi, this one was Jacob Frank
Right,
Lahavdil.
right, exactly. So something has to end. But in a certain sense, like the Grateful Dead has ended so many times in so many ways, and then you kind of ask yourself, well, when when was it a thing before it ended, or was it always in this process of ending in some way, right? And I think there's truth to that. It's one of the few bands of that era that during the life of the band, almost all the musicians had other musical projects,
Right.
right? So they were always spinning out of themselves, right?
Mhm.
And then you had a whole series of people that came in, keyboardists in particular, right? Five keyboardists came in, and and
Right.
and most of them tragically died. But um, it was a machine that was constantly evolving, right? And
Mhm.
it had four constituent parts, right? It had Jerry Garcia, Bob Weir, Phil Lesh, and then Bill Kreutzmann and Mickey Hart together. And then there were things around the sides that, and on all of those different editions changed the music in a certain way. I mean, when Gottschalk started to play, like that's really when the jazz came in,
Mhm.
right? And when Hornsby played, and it was very different than when Pigpen was playing. It was a blues band,
Right.
you know. So anyway, it was very striking to think about the transgenerational nature of the whole thing. The second story is I went with a friend of mine to the PNC Center in New Jersey to hear either Further or the other one, or whatever, one kind of post dead iteration.
Mhm.
And we were sitting, like in these lawn chairs, that you could close to the ground, or whatever. And I said to him, Yossi, like, don't you remember like when we were kids and we went to dead shows and there were these like old people? Like we're actually like the whole thing has reproduced itself,
It
right?
has, and more than once, because it's literally is like Lador Vador now. at the last show that I went to of Dead and Company just a couple of weeks ago, there were like OG Deadheads. It was in San Francisco, so like the elders of the tribe, and you could tell them right away by their age and their demeanor and their floweriness and the way that they were treated by like elders, you know. And you had this whole middle-aged group, and then you had all these really young people. And by young, I'm saying like really young, like in their 20s or
Sure.
younger, and that were all there. They were into Dead and Company because of John Mayer. That was the entry drug, and then they got into Dead and Company because of him. Like they didn't know Jerry, they didn't know, they weren't there at the beginning. And a lot of the people who are, you know, the ages of, I'm going to say my children, like in their 30s and early 40s, they also weren't so much around when Jerry was playing. So the tradition, the Masorah, has to have a foundation. Now, this is my whole theory. Goes like this, to quote Game of Thrones, a special part of it, you know, what is dead may never die. So the thing about the dead is it keeps on, as you say, reproducing itself, not just in the sense of these bands like Dark Star Orchestra or any of the other million wonderful cover bands, you know, that are playing, that reproduces itself in fandom and the scene. Like there's an expectation of this community that is, you know, Taylor Swift, La Havdil is playing here in Los Angeles this week. So a lot of talk about how Swifties are like deadheads. Like, in other words, she knows how to create community, but nobody created community with the way the Dead did. But that community hasn't fallen apart. It's morphed, and it has grown to this expectation of people who come to a Dead and Company show, or any, I'm going to say the Dead Chevra shows. You know, if you have a Billy and the Kids show, or Bob Weir, and it pops up and plays somewhere, anyone who is part of that scene, there's a certain expectation about a family feeling, you know, a Chevra feeling that you're going to get there. That's not, you know, it doesn't fade away. You know, if it does fade away, then it's not sustainable. It doesn't last.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. My daughter once, somehow we came across something when she must have been 18 or something. And a few 3-4 years ago, we came across some Grateful Dead flag or something, and she made some kind of comment about it. And I said, "Really, Kinneret? I had no idea that you really like the Grateful Dead." And she looked at me and said, "Oh no, I don't like the Grateful Dead. I like the idea of the Grateful Dead. I don't like the music at all, but I like the concept." And,
right.
and I think that there's some of that exists with it. It's a piece of that. It's a piece of that culture in a way that I don't really think you see it in many other places. I mean, even something like the Beatles or the Beach Boys, which, I mean, the Beatles maybe, but even that, there's something different. But you know,
Something different. There's something, and there's always with the Beatles, like, who was your favorite Beatle? And there was like this almost like rivalry, and it was never like that with the Grateful Dead, about like, who was your favorite member of the Grateful Dead? That wasn't like a thing, you know, so
right?
much.
It's true. It's true. It's true. Yeah, that's, I think, because the Beatles. It was all of this kind of like British invasion boy worship thing that happened
Yeah.
in the
It
60s.
was a different era too, and the Beatles weren't selling themselves. I mean, the Grateful Dead weren't selling themselves as like, we're here to be your new boyfriend.
Right, right, right. So,
we're here we're here to blow your mind.
right. So this is what I want to suggest. This is my little kind of drusha. One of the things that everybody focuses on, and understandably so, certainly in listening to a lot of the music, are the live shows, because that's, in a certain sense, where a lot of the sparkle is, and where a lot of the kind of creativity happens, and where a lot of the openness happens, and where the energy is. But there they were also like a really successful studio band, and they came out with some really, you know, over the course of from 1969 to 19, well, into the 80s. But I'm interested, like, from 1969, from Oxomoxo until Terrapin Station. they came out with almost a studio album every year, right? And people don't really pay attention. Everybody's listening to Dick's Picks, everybody's listening to the live shows, but they were coming out with a studio album every year. And there's a certain way in which there's like a kind of Torah shebechtav and Torah shebel peh, like written law and oral. Like the written law are the studio albums. That's where the songs kind of emerge. And then the oral law is just the live shows, because then they're just riffing and playing and doing all of that. So I wanted to kind of go back to the written law a little bit and listen to some of the studio stuff, because it really is, for people that have recorded in a studio, it's a whole different genre of playing music than playing live.
And I think it's much harder for them too, because they're so symbiotic with the audience,
Right.
that they had to really challenge themselves to be in the studio.
Right. And I also think there was a way in which they just, there's some way in which, it's funny because as kind of the persona of Garcia was someone who was really kind of loose, and he was incredibly disciplined. I mean, if you read like the Charles Reich interview from Rolling Stone in 1972, I mean, the guy is playing 7-8 hours a day, right? I mean, so they were actually much more disciplined than the personalities that they presented to us, right? And so the studio work, some of it is actually very good, and we don't really get a chance to kind of listen to that.
Okay, so we're going to hear our first check.
So let me tell you how I want to do it. So there are the studio albums that interested me were the ones from, not from '67, which is the first one, but because that was a kind of a mess, that first record. It was really like way go. It was just, I mean, you can tell they did not know what they were doing in the studio. Like, that sense where they couldn't make that transition from playing in the street to playing in a studio. But by Oxamoxoa, then you really started to see like some production. So I wanted to start with there and then go to Terrapin Station. So the first thing we wanted to play was China Cat Sunflower. Right. The studio, this is the 1969 Oxamoxoa studio version.
Okay. Are you going to share your screen?
I could share, yeah, let me do that.
Okay, you could share your screen and make sure you click on share sound.
Where do I do share sound?
Okay, so you got to click out of that so you can see it again. There's a little, so when you click on the share screen on the bottom,
I got it. Yeah. Here, this is what I wanted. You can see it?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, let's roll it out.
She got peeking through a lace, bad like a one. shower of pearls illegal, wing palace of the queen, shining.
Wow.
Muchas gracias.
Okay.
Hablar mucho español, pero
We there.
Yeah, we're here. Yeah, that was cool.
That was very hallucinogenic on many
Yeah.
levels. Like you can hear how they're trying to work with distortion and echoes and all sorts of primitive effects like that
I know.
in to try to get that.
And then it
That-
was, and it had that. It still had the kind of we're playing for the acid test kind of feel. I mean, you have that you have that with St. Stephen and Oxomoxoatu, right? Where it's just like electric, loud, San Francisco sound stuff, and then and then all of a sudden, like the next year, and you just have Working Man's Day, and it's like, wait, what happened? It's like a whole different sound.
Yeah, they really were so multifaceted,
Right.
so that they could go from psychedelic to country and blues and Americana, almost like flip a switch.
Yeah, I mean, totally Americana. This is like, I think Working Man's Dead is really Pigpen's record.
Oh, definitely.
It's really the record where he had the most musical influence on, I think, and American Beauty too. But I don't know. There's something about Working Man's Dead is that, in a certain sense, that's kind of how I came into like listening to the Grateful Dead. I think Working Man's Dead it just come out.
Right.
It came out like the year before, and I was starting high school. It's like, yeah,
I'll take one of those, please.
Well, when I was in high school, I went to high school in the New York suburbs, and it was a kind of, I guess they call it diverse high school at this point. So among like the white kids, there were like the class was divided into like groups. There were the people that listened to the Grateful Dead. There were the people that listened to the Allman Brothers.
Oh,
Right? There were people that listened to kind of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, yes, like the more kind of, that thing.
electronic.
Yeah. And that's, and then the people that would listen to the Rolling Stones.
Right.
Like it was like those were the camps, right? and the black kids were listening to all other kinds of music, and the Hispanic kids were listening to other kinds of music, But it was interesting. That's really that was really what it was. You were in a music
Interesting, because in my high school, because I went to high school in California, in Southern California, so there was like socially there were like the jocks and the stoners and the weird kids or whatever, but it was like California music, like the Beach Boys, the Eagles, that kind of thing. There were that camp. And then there were all the like the emo girls and the singer-songwriters like James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, Carly Simon, like Simon and Garfunkel. Those are the emo kids. Like they would call them emo kids now, but we didn't call them that.
Janice Ian.
Yeah.
Lauren Nero, yeah. I mean, yeah, those are people that, I mean, Lauren Nero is amazing, and just
yeah, and they would sit on the lawn at lunchtime and play guitar and wear like peasant blouses and flowers in their hair, and we all loved them. They were great. And then there were like the Deadheads, and the Deadheads also would have encompassed the Allman Brothers. They would have, in my demographic. And then the Rolling Stones they were dangerous, and we loved them, but only the really, really dangerous kids that had parents who neglected them were allowed to go see them. My parents wouldn't let me go see the Rolling Stones, okay? And I know that they both lived to regret it, because I told them many, many times under many, many conditions how that would have been a really good idea not for them to repress me at that age. But
Yeah, it's very funny. That's very funny. Yeah, yeah. But I think that also a lot of stuff happened because I was kind of coming into it the years that went from Oxomoxoa to Working Man's Dead and American Beauty, so they really became a different kind of band. So you became exposed to other kinds of music through them, right? I mean, for me, bluegrass music, David Grisman stuff, like that whole world, which then Garcia started to record with Grisman later on. Once you get open to that kind of Americana stuff, yeah, it's a whole different world.
let's hear some.
Yeah, so let's hear the classic Uncle John's Band.
I love that.
Yeah, 1 second. You can see it?
Yeah.
Well, the first days are the hardest days, don't you worry anymore. 'Cause when life looks like easy street, there is danger at your door. Think this through with me, let me know your mind. Whoa, what I want to know is, are you kind? It's a buck dancer's choice, my friends, better take my advice. You know all the rules by now, and the fire from the ice. Will you come with me? Won't you come with me? Whoa, what I want to know, will you come with me? Goddamn, will I declare, have you seen the light? Their walls are built of cannonballs, their motto is don't tread on me. Come here, Uncle John's band, playing to the tide. Come with me or go alone, he's come to take his children home. Same story the crow told me, it's the only one you know. Like the morning sun you come, and like the wind you go. Ain't no time to hate, barely time to wait. Whoa, what I want to know, where does the time go? In a silver mine, and I call it Beggar's Tomb. I got me a violin, and I beg you call the tune. Anybody's choice, I can hear your voice. Whoa, what I want to know, how does the song go? Here, Uncle John's band by the riverside. Got some things to talk about here beside the rising tide. Come hear Uncle John's band playing to the tide. Come on along or go alone. He's come to take his children home. Got some things to talk about here beside the rising tide. Come hear Uncle John's band playing to the tide. Come on along and go along. He's come to take his children home.
Whoop. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, that was good.
That was good. I
Yeah.
remember when that first came out, I was like, who are these guys? What are they doing?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's funny because as I was listening, I was looking at the photograph of the cover of the record, and the way the photograph was taken, Pigpen is in the center. He's really right in the center of the photograph.
Right.
I wanted to say a few things. If you listen to the difference between the China Cat Sunflower and this is such a constrained. The form is there, the harmonies. That's what you can't do live. They could never really perform they can never really perform this well live. You can't get harmonies like that live. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, you need, very few people, even Crosby, Stills, and Nash, who were really the best. When they were live, the harmonies were just, it's just being in a studio makes all the difference, especially on vocals.
Yeah.
So
I've heard them do it. That's the thing though. It also so much depends on the venue and the sound, and you don't even, when you're in the zone of your zone with the Dead and they're doing a really good job, you hardly notice when they don't get it right as harmonically as they might in the studio. But
no, this was this was a tune that was really very well produced.
yeah. Who produced that? Who produced
I
that?
don't remember. I didn't get a chance to look, but you could see the difference between Johnny Cat Sunflower and this song, just on the level of production and sound.
Right.
So I was thinking like, you said to me earlier, Working Men's Dead and American Beauty are really kind of almost twins. They come out a year apart from each other, and they are, I guess, in some way.
Yeah, I really feel like they're two sides of the same coin, or they were born around the same time. They're close enough to be twins, and I know that a lot of the songs were written at the same time. I think Robert Hunter said that he wrote a lot of those songs like within a 2 or 3 day period that came out on both.
Yeah, I've read a couple of stories like that. I saw a recent story about Terrapin Station, and also Robert Hunter wrote that very, very quickly. And anyway, so yeah, those are. I'm always interested in those kinds of stories of how these things come to be. I mean, there's all these Beatles stories with this, because sometimes they come to be in such like quotidian, banal ways.
Totally. Did you see the 6-hour documentary about the Beatles? And Get Back?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
It's long. It's long, but it had those moments. Did you see the one with Paul McCartney and Rick Rubin?
No.
Oh,
No.
that you need to see. That's like a kind of a master class in what you're talking about, in that the banality of genius.
Yeah, there's something about that. Right, it's true. But I think it's true of the creative process in general. It comes unawares, like the Talmud says the Messiah comes unawares. And scorpions come unawares. Well, creativity comes unawares too very often.
Comes on a meek and lowly of heart.
Yeah, so I was thinking in American Beauty, the obvious song is Box of Rain, but the other song that I really think doesn't get enough play in American Beauty is Addicts of My Life, because that's another tune that's really very vocal and very harmonic, right? So it has this kind of a strange quality that's not very unique to them, but I think it's choir-like even. So let's give a listen.
Okay.
In the attics of my life, full of cloudy dreams unreal, full of tastes no tongue can know. Spent my life seeking all that's still unsung, bent my ear to hear the tune. in the secret space of dreams, where I dreaming lay amazed, when the secrets all are told, and the petals all unfold. When there was no dream of mine, you dreamed of me.
Hey,
Hey, wow. You know, that made me think about the two albums, American Beauty and Working Man's Dead, and how many songs on both of them were songs that had like this kind of foreboding death theme, like, or longing, wistful, maybe death, like, you know, Broken Down Palace was on
sure,
that album.
right.
Oh my God, what happened here over here?
Yeah.
No, what is going on? Sorry about that. My other computer is freaking out, right? So Addicts of My Life and Broken Down Palace were both on that.
Right.
And on Working Man's Dead, Black Peter,
Black Peter, yeah, that's probably the slowest,
Dire Wolf,
right, the slowest song ever.
right?
It almost stops at a certain point. It's so slow. No, yeah, no, it's a dark. Working Man's Dead is a dark album for sure, and American Beauty, Box of Rain, Phil Lesh writing about his father's death. I mean, yeah, I think both of those records are the kind of, they're a dark, hard scrabble Americana
They're
music.
very Americana. Even the look of them, like if you look at the two album covers, Working Man's Dead is like, it's that same kind of color as Neil Young's Harvest. I don't even know what that color is.
Right.
It's the
right.
color of the earth when there has been no rain and it's turned into a dust ball, right? And also the American Beauty, it has the American Beauty rose and the logo, but on it's like surrounded like by wood. It looks like wood, not wood paneling, but something. It's very earthy. It has a very like connected to the land, earth kind of a feeling about both albums in that way, visually and also
Yeah,
with the composition.
it was a particular moment in time too. 1970, 1971. I mean, it was Vietnam War was still happening. Yeah, the country was really getting ripped apart for sure.
And I just wonder also, like what you said about Pigpen, like how much awareness was of top of mind awareness that his health was not necessarily going in the right
Yeah,
direction.
he was not someone that was going to live to be an old man. I think that was pretty clear.
Yeah.
That was pretty clear early on. On Facebook, on my Facebook anyway, Jordan Hirsch, who's actually a great musician, said, made the joke that, what does the Deadhead say when the drugs wear off? This music sucks. and but what I want to actually show Jordan is that there is something to that in the live music. Well, I'll explain in a moment, but you see in the studio, they actually really produce good music, right? I mean, precise music. I think their live music was just the way live music is. I mean, they were about creating an experience. They weren't about virtuosity and kind of like hitting every note and
No.
and be singing on tune they were really creating an experience. I had a guitar teacher once, and I said, "Oh, I just got this new record by Jerry Garcia and David Grisman," and he really didn't, he knew they were, but he was not it's not his scene. I was a jazz guitarist, and so I brought him the pizza tapes with Tony Rice. It was a great CD, Tony Rice and David Grisman, Jerry Garcia, and he listened to it. And when I came back the next week for my lesson, I said, "What do you think?" He said, "Oh, they're all great musicians, but it's really, really messy. Like it's just basically they're just sitting around in the living room, and they're, and I think that there's a messiness to the live music that almost is necessary. It can't be, it can't be too perfect."
Right.
That was Keith Richards' critique of the band was
Oh,
the band were too perfect.
they were too perfect.
They played every note correctly.
Mhm. Interesting.
Anyway, so this next record, which is the first post Pigpen record, Wake of the Flood, 1973. So there was like the goodbye to Pigpen in Europe 72, and then Wake of the Flood. So I want to play this Weather Report suite, just like the first 5 minutes of it. It's really cool. And it's like if you would play this to somebody and say, "Who recorded this?" you wouldn't necessarily think it was the Grateful Dead. So let's see if I can find it. I know that I have it. Oh gosh. No. Oh, I'll have to. Yeah. Okay, ready?
Ready.
Let's do it. There you go.
Did
Just
Bob Weir write that? Was that a
I
Bob
think
Weir?
so. I think so. I'm not sure, but it really is. It's so sweet and so you know, um, melodic and tempered. And also, one of the things that you notice about listen to this, and also Addicts of My Life, is how central the bass is. I mean, Lesh is not like it's not like Lesh and the drummers are providing kind of the rhythm section for the Lesh is like right at the center. I mean,
Right.
that bass is really like everything just kind of comes out of it. Yeah, it's really actually, I was with somebody at a dead show once, and he turned to me, he said, Phil Lesh is the heartbeat of the band. Right. And it's true. It's very easy to lose that, but
He's the tree trunk that it's like he comes up and everything plays off of that.
totally. So he's playing a six-string bass. He's basically playing alternate lead lines with Jerry.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's very,
Yeah.
yeah. I always thought that was an underrated record, Wake of the Flood. There's some really,
Yeah,
really good
I
stuff
do
there.
too. People kind of dismissed it in some way or another, like studio tracks. When are they going to tour? See, this is what we did back in the day, is like we've gotten very impatient. We wanted to see them live. I feel guilty about that now, but in a way,
Yeah. No, I
no.
think, yeah, I think I mean, I felt that too, because really it was, you would go to a Dead show and you wouldn't even have to go into the show. It's the Hevra, right? It's just, we reproduce
You
that
need to
in,
be in the show, like,
yeah.
you do need to go into the show
Yeah.
with
Well, I'm
with
just
all
saying
your
that,
millions of closest friends.
right,
Yeah.
right. I really do think that certainly in my day back in Jerusalem in the early '80s, and I mean the whole notion of the Chevra, the way the Karlbach Chevra developed, it came from that sensibility of people that really had that in some
Right.
form. So it was kind of natural. You just recreate this kind of community around something or somebody or some ideology, it became, with Judaism, a way of life. But yeah, it was an easy move. It was an easy transition on some level.
Very easy transition. It felt very natural to show up in Jerusalem as a Bala Tshuva and hit Nachlaot with all of the hippie deadheads coming in as a deadhead and going like, oh, well, this makes perfect sense.
Right.
No.
There was this, circle around this interesting group around Karlbach, and funnily enough, Yitzhak Ginsburg was also, before he really kind of radicalized, he was kind of part of that scene, and
Oh,
Zalman
yeah.
was part of that scene, and there was a Jerusalem Chevra, Modi'im Chevra, a New York Chevra, a San Francisco Chevra. Yeah, the days, huh?
Those were the days, my friend. We thought they'd never end.
So the
And
next thing I want to
they
do is
carry on in their own way, like we said before, like what keeps on producing itself and reproducing and having offspring and offshoots in different ways are the core things about all of these phenomenon that actually have a lot in common. The Grateful Dead seeing the Chevra, the Karlbach / Zalman Chevras that, both have their own little worlds that they live in.
right.
It has a life to it. It has like a living thing happening that's still happening.
Yeah, it
And
just
young people are attracted to it.
right. But as we find the next generation just it's a different iteration. So
Right.
it's a different voice. It's a different set of issues. It's a different world. The truth is,
It is a different world. It's a different world.
totally different world than we grew up in, or than our parents grew up in, or grandparents. So, yeah, it's a struggle. I think baby boomers in general have that struggle of letting go. Like we were raised to believe we were always going to be what mattered.
Stop, you mean we're not? Stop the presses. I demand a refund. I want to speak to the manager.
All right, I wanted to go to the next studio record, which also I find to be like a very fun record, which is from the Mars Hotel. There's something about it that's like, like the way in which Working Man's Dead and American Beauty are dark. It seems like Readings from the Mars Hotel is kind of like very upbeat U.S. blues, right? I mean, this cut I want to look at Ship of Fools not so much, but it's an upbeat record. Right, it's somehow like they came out of something, and it also, I think, doesn't get the same kind of attention that some of the other ones get, especially when
We're having a little more fun. They were starting to feel a little lighter there,
right
in Mark's Hotel.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's see. This is Ship of Fools,
Okay.
which is a cool song.
Went to see the captain, strangest I could find. Laid my proposition down, laid it on the line. I won't slave for beggars' pay, likewise gold and jewels, but I would slave to learn the way, sink your ship of fools, ship of fools, on a cruel sea, ship of fools, sail away from me. It was later than I thought when I first believed you. Now I cannot share your laughter, ship of fools. Saw your first ship sink and drown from rocking of the boat, and all that could not sink or swim was just left there to float. I won't leave you drifting down, but whoa, it makes me wild. With 30 years upon my head, to have you call me child, ship of on a cool sea, ship of fools, sail away from me. It was later than I thought when I first believed you. Now I cannot share your laughter, ship of bottles stand as empty as they were filled before. Time there was and plenty, but from that cup no more. Though I could not caution all, I still might warn of you. Don't lend your hand to raise no flame atop no ship of fools, ship of fools, on a cool sea, ship of fools, sail away from me. It was later than I thought when I first believed you. Now I cannot share your laughter, ship of fools. It was later than I thought
Awesome.
I was just looking it up to see who produced it. I think they produced it themselves with their engineer, Roy C.
There's a few really interesting things to me to say about the song. First of all, this is a quintessential Jerry Garcia song. I mean, it's kind of made for him.
Oh, totally.
It's just the way in which he can tell a story in that kind of mournful way. It's perfect tune for him. The other thing, I remember when he first started recording with Merle Saunders, and a lot of us were asking, it's a strange combination. Like, how does Jerry Garcia come with Merle Saunders? And if you listen to Ship of Fools, you can hear it. You can hear the way in which they're using kind of organ and keyboards in these jazz progressions. That makes sense in a way,
Totally. Yeah, it adds so much to that. You really hear it in that that's an excellent studio recording.
Yeah.
Really, really good.
Yeah, that's great. Hi.
Boy,
Yeah, I know. I think that for me, one of the things that I really appreciate the most about listening to the studio records are the vocals.
mhm.
That's where you really see the difference. I mean, the vocals are just clear, the harmonies are there, and they actually harmonize well. They're not Crosby, Stills and Nash, but
Well, you can, and it can be engineered so you can actually hear the vocals.
yeah, you can hear the vocals. Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't by the time Blues for Allah came out in 75, I was graduating high school, and or maybe I was in 11th grade. So, but there's something about I always found that record to be somewhat like a shift,
The
Not
ship,
exactly why. Yeah, the shift.
a sailing ship.
Yeah, a shift in their for some reason a shift in the music. I don't know. I think
Push
they were doing a lot more jazz,
Okay, yes.
right? And they were being more experimental in terms of style. That was my sense. I don't know. I guess the Egypt trip, I guess that was part of I don't know what that means. I don't know what the Egypt trip means. I mean, going back to like early civilization, pharaonic civilization to roots. So what I
It seemed
thought,
like such a statement though, didn't it? At the time when it came out, it was like the Grateful Dead are saying something really profound about the matzav, the situation, but what they're saying is so big, you have to take so many steps back to get it.
right?
You'll fall off the cliff.
Exactly. Yeah. I wonder if, I mean, this is, I think somehow this record was taken over by Terrapin Station. I just think Terrapin Station is so powerful that it kind of overshadowed Blues for Allah, but it came out 2 years later. Terrapin Station came out 2 years later, so there was time. So the song that I wanted to listen to was King Solomon's Marbles, which is really a good tune from them. So let's do that. Yeah, I just cut it short a little bit. It went on, goes on a long time.
I know. I like it. I
Yeah.
was in.
I mean, but like if you just take first of all take like Uncle John's band and then this, it's like, is this the same band? Right? I mean, it's a totally different sound, and even China Cat Sunflower. This this is jazz basically.
Right. Totally.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah, yeah. And it's kind of this like uh with Ship of Fools, you have all these lyrics and very little instrument, and then at the end you have him telling the story again, except as an instrumental.
Right.
And here you just have, there's no lyrics. There's no lyrics that can go. Oh man. So I wanted to do what for me, like in the studio stuff, which is I think the greatest studio piece they ever made was Terrapin Station, and we could do two things. We could play the whole thing, or we could play a piece of Doug Helvering's analysis of it. He's a classical composer, and he does a kind of analysis of Terrapin Station in on his show. He has a show called Daily Doug. Are you familiar with it?
Uh-uh.
No,
No.
it's very interesting. He's a classical musician, and he just takes these different genres of music and he just talks about them. He listens to them and talks about them. So let's do that because it's fun and people probably haven't seen it.
Okay.
So I'm going to start. I'll start from like 3 minutes in when because he introduces. Okay.
Let my inspiration flow in token lines, suggesting rhythm that will not forsake me till my tale is told and gone. So this is a storyteller. Let's hear the story. While the fireflights aglow, strange shadows and the flames will grow till things we've never seen will seem familiar. So we've got a sailor. He loved a lady down in Carlisle. Is that a reference to Scotland, I think? Now he's joined by a soldier who is lonely. Oh, that's such an inviting little opening arpeggio. The door within the fire creaks. So we got some allegory coming on here. Because we can't have a door within a fire, right? Or a girl that just appears out of a fire. She takes her fan and throws in the lion's den. What's the 4 chord? They keep doing that over the 4 chord. And that's fine. They're off doing other things. I think we're in C, y'all. Strategy was a strength and not disaster. Boy, what a lovely and non-aggressive, sort of inviting instrumental sound to the way that this is put together. Really makes you feel welcome, right? Especially with the timbre of his voice. Nothing hard-edged about it, nothing intense or aggressive about it, just come join the party, y'all. That's how it stands today. You decide if he was wise. So we get to decide if he was wise. It's the job of the storyteller. Just to inform and narrate, and not to intentionally like try to change our hearts and minds, or intentionally move our hearts and minds, just to recount the story. Still hanging over that F chord, that 4 chord. F went up to F sharp, went up to G, but that's now a minor chord. Where did they go? That's cool. First time we've heard harmony, vocal harmony. So 5 to 6, E major chord. Since the end is never told, we pay the teller off in gold in hopes he will come back, but he cannot be bought or sold, is what they just said. I think it's the end of that section. And now this is the next section. And that was 5 of 6, and we modulated to 6. We modulated to A. Interesting that the Terrapin Station section started again with inspiration, a call, like an invocation for inspiration, and asking for inspiration from something, right? Just see it. Crickets, cicadas, crescent moon, rare and different. Terrapin Station. Ooh, grass. In the shadow of the moon, y'all. Listen to the low brass. Big 4 chord. Still the 4. Can't get over the low trombones. Those bass trombones. I think there's tubas there as well, but those bass trombones are what gives you those zings way in those lower registers. The tubas are the big round sound. Wow. Yeah. They're still in A, but they moved to A minor. They changed to A minor predominantly. I think we're on the journey to Terrapin Station. I'm getting the feeling that it's metaphorical, allegorical. I love those little woodwind breakdowns. Really cool sound. Little mixed meter in there. It's like a little madrigal. that kind of surrounds and like kind of weaves in and out of this kind of moving forward. It's like it reminds us to have fun while we're on the journey, I think. Big 4-chord. Major 4-chord. I think we may have arrived, y'all. There's the gong. Kind of a descending line, parallel force, and we land on that low D.
While you were gone, these spaces filled with darkness.
This is the called at a sighting.
The obvious was hidden. Nothing to believe in. The compass always points to terrapin. Sullen wings of fortune beat like rain. You're back in terrapin for good or ill again.
You're back in Terrapin for good or ill again. While you were gone, these spaces filled with darkness. That explains the half step that they kept going up and down to. Whoa! I like that. That consistent cymbal ride. It's a really neat sound. While you were gone, these spaces filled with darkness, the obvious was hidden with nothing to believe in. The compass always points to Terrapin. I'm trying to figure out what that means. This is just radness, isn't it? It's a very cohesive integration of the band as orchestral members. The drums just become part of the, listen to that, the drums become part of the percussion section. The guitar just becomes a solo string instrument. Little like 3 section. 4, 5, 6. 1, 5, 6. Probably 6, more than 3. Up a step. So I think we're just going down the road, y'all. We've been to the station, we've been to a sighting, and now we're just kind of riding the train. are full steps. I guess you would need 2 drummers to get something complex like that to really work. This is kind of like we had earlier. It's kind of return to that sound. But now we get the choir. There it is. Big 4 chord. All right. I love it. I love it. This is really interesting. Put this in the category of exceeds expectations. What expectations there were. Again, I don't know how this compares to a lot of their other stuff because I haven't really listened to a lot of it. But I dig this. This is cool. I wonder if the madrigal is a specific quote or if that's just something that they came up with in the course of writing the rest of it. Pretty close to the end. Is this gonna just kind of churn its way to the end? Because I noticed that the volume is starting to turn down a little bit. Is it a really slow fade? Yeah, it looks like it. Now that I think about it, the main melody reminds me more and more of a full, mature madrigal-like setting. It is meant to entertain, tell a story, and yeah, that's it. And, these madrigals, they weren't, like high music, they weren't designed for like the posh concert halls. They were for the people to share ideas, to share stories, and to revel in the human condition and revel in life. And this sort of tune reminds me of that tradition, especially with those little lines in there that remind me of like an old madrigal style writing. So, gosh, should I take a shot at what it means or what it all means for us? Terrapin, it could just be well, it has.
Hey, I don't think we need to hear his little drush at the end, but I found it when I first did it. I mean, even now, I found it interesting to listen to it with him.
Yeah, it's like filtering the whole thing through an academic music composer. Like he knows it all by the notes.
Yeah, and he's just basically listening to the way it all gets put together, and that has to do with the notes and with the keys, and if you and also there's so much there in terms of production, in terms of choirs and horns, and it really is actually quite orchestral, really.
It is really orchestral, and it's like it's epic. It's a giant canvas of storytelling that integrates so many different genres and traditions, and a little hint of this, a little hint of that, a little simile, a little metaphor here and there. It's vast. It's just vast and has so many overlapping permutations at any given moment.
Right. So my take is that this is like Um, I think in some way this is the end of the Grateful Dead, because I think from Shakedown Street and Go to Heaven, they're all, it's all good stuff, but it's not, it's just it categorically different from this and what came before it. And then they already had a canon, and then they could just go around and do their Tosha Balpeh like, you know, until the end of time, because they had this canon of stuff, and they just, you know, they took it with them. I don't think there was any. I mean, maybe tell me if I'm missing something. I don't know if there's any really significant new music that came out. There was like Touch of Grey. I mean, there was stuff that became more popular, you know. So, um,
Oh, no, there was things like, okay, I'm gonna say that Althea really does belong in the canon, and that
yeah,
was after that.
okay, that's
And Standing on the Moon,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
Shakedown Street. I mean, Shakedown Street in itself. So what happened was Shakedown Street, Touch of Grey, at that point, they got this commercial success that they had never had before. And
right,
that's when the whole Shakedown Street phenomenon started outside of shows, with people making it much, much, much bigger than it had been
right,
originally doing. Like the scene changed, it got more in some ways. And I think that you can see that in the music as it progressed throughout the next decade plus after that happened, because
yeah,
they had, like you said, they had the canon, but they had to make the Mishnah and the Gemara on it. Then they had to have the Tosafot, and there
right,
had to be a lot of commentators.
right. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that you know, in a
they
certain
did produce some things after that, but the majority of their work probably was before that.
right, and they produce some really great live material after
Mhm.
that. Certainly in the 80s they had some great shows. But yeah, I always saw Terrapin Station was like the Summa.
Right.
It was like it was like the, you know, the it was the Sefer Devarim. It was the end.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, the other original works and other studio albums came afterwards, but they said it all in Terrapin Station. It was like
yeah.
Mishnah Torah.
I just can't. You know, when I think of other great, you know, musical groups of that genre and period, I can't think of anyone that's really as eclectic. I mean, the Beach Boys were amazing, but the Beach Boys were the Beach Boys. They had their sound, and they just like produced amazing music from it. And you know, I think the Rolling Stones, Allman Brothers, they had their Southern sound. I mean, there's something that's so eclectic if you go from like Uncle John's Band to Ship of Fools to Terrapin Station. You know,
It's kind, and it's truly Americana, and it's not just in that one sense, but in the very most broad sense, that there's a little bit of everything
yeah,
from all of our different musical traditions, our Masorah, so to speak.
right,
You know, they brought it all together. They brought it all together. They gave it to us. We're so lucky to have it on tape, and you know, God bless the tapers
right.
and the engineers and everybody who was a part of it.
Right. You know, there's an early tradition in Hasidism that there were certain people who, for one reason or another, even if only as like infants or children, met the Baal Shem Tov. Either their
Mm,
father brought them or some, right? And then they just, whoever they were, they had a certain status, right?
right,
They met the Baal Shem Tov, and I think that there's a generation of people, and these were the students I was talking about, um, who, you know, I mean, Jerry Garcia is really just a mythic figure, and that's just the way that's the way founders of movements are, really, you know. You know, I
right,
think that's happening with Jewish renewal and Zalman too. There's a whole generation of people who are like in the renewal world who never knew Zalman.
right.
And and there's a conflict between, you know, the old timers and the next generation. But that's
It was
just
interesting to see how it plays out over a number of years because, you know, the ideas and the concepts and the things that have the things that are useful to our time and are relevant to us are the things that stay, you know, and so we'll see what stays, even when the old timers are gone. It shouldn't be for a very long time. Odd may have a stream, everybody who we might
right.
be thinking of, but you know, the people who were the OG people, the original gangster renewal people of an age, you know, they're of an age. I never knew Zalman and I never knew Shlomo. I only knew the Chevra and the Hasidim from both ends, but I did know Jerry. I did. Jerry was my OG Rebbe before. I think that's probably one of the things about how much I loved the Grateful Dead, that when I got to Balachuva land, I immediately recognized it for what it was. And I was like, yes, let's go. This is a family. This is it's a life cycle party, you know, with
Right.
major ups and downs, but
It's
yeah,
it's also just another layer of a counterculture. It's another iteration of a
it
counterculture.
is. It is. I think I'm just stuck on the counterculture, you know, just as the time place continuum that I grew up on.
Mhm.
I hate to be such a cliche. I really have to think of something to do that's going to completely counteract my own cliches. So we'll see.
I see. Well, you know,
Shaul, it's always so great to have you.
great to be
Can
here.
you tell us a little bit of little Bissela of what you're up to? What's up in your
Yeah, I'm here in Vermont in the rain, in the woods, and being in the woods in the summer in the rain is amazing. It really is amazing. And so I'm here for a part of the summer, and I'm going to be teaching at Harvard in next year in the fall and spring. So I'll be in Cambridge mostly, and Annette, you know, teaches there as well. So we'll be in Cambridge, and I don't know, coming out with a couple of, you know, a book and a couple of other things. A book on
Okay.
exile.
Oh, exile.
Yeah, and
Exile on Main Street.
not exile on Main Street, just exile on any street. And Basia Schechter and I are coming out with a record of
Oh,
Appalachian Kabbalat Shabbat music.
that should be great.
So that should be fun. So yeah.
We would love to play it on Radio Free Nachlaot. Make sure
Okay.
that
Once we get it, once we launch it into the world, for sure. So what's happening for the rest of the 9 days? You have one more day, and then Israel.
we have tomorrow we have Noah Monroe Lehrman, who we have just about every year, and he's going to be bringing us his many surprises.
Right.
And then that's the 9th, and then we have Isru Jerry, which is going to be for the rest of the week because, you know, it's not like we're going to stop. We have to go all the way through Shabbos, and we're doing a little fundraiser like we do every year. And folks, if you would like to be kind and help support Radio Free Nachlaot, the hippie Chevra radio station broadcasting from Jerusalem and from wherever I happen to be, which happens to be Long Beach, California right now. But Steve is definitely runs the majority of the time, and he's in undisclosed Studio B in Jerusalem. Go to our webpage, radiofreenachlaot.com, NACHLAOT, and you'll see like a contribution link, and it would be so nice to have a little bit of your kesef because we run on we run on the level of our listeners, as we've been doing since we started broadcasting on Rosh Chodesh Kislev of 2009. So we're insane. Obviously, we're totally certifiable. All of our families have had to try to have us committed, but luckily all of the doctors are deadheads, so they're like, yeah, it is crazy what they're doing, but just let them alone. Let them do it. But it costs money, folks, so help us out with that. And I'm gonna go to HAS in December in San Francisco.
I don't. Yeah, I saw you in another HAS some years ago. I don't know if I'm going to the one in San
I
Francisco.
only go to the ones on the West Coast because the ones on the East Coast, it's like, yeah, do I want to go to Boston or Chicago in December?
Yeah,
No,
I think I saw you. I think we saw each other in Los Angeles
I think it was San Diego.
or San Diego. San Diego. San Diego. That's right. Yeah, for an Easterner, LA and San Diego.
That's
Kind
right.
of,
Yeah, lots of good things going on in the world, and hopefully we're gonna all come out the other side the right way. I want to wish you a Shana Tova. You and your family should all be healthy and wealthy and wise and good. Here comes Elul times coming round the bend. And that means it's Rosh Hashanah in 5 minutes.
I know.
I can't handle it.
I know. I feel the same way. I feel the same way. I'm in the same exact place you are.
It's like we're captives on the carousel of time, to quote Joni, you
Right,
know.
exactly.
So we're playing the circle game, but it's fun to play with you. So thank you so much for being
Yeah,
with
it was
us.
great. Always. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Okay, now I'm going to turn off the recording and you can stop the,
The Facebook thing.
yeah.
Okay, I think I don't.
Okay, thank you so much, Shaul,
This was fun. I'm glad we got a chance to do it.
too. Baruch
Yeah.
Hashem.
All right. Could you send?
For everything.
Is there a link? Was it YouTube or is it just Facebook?
No, it's on it will be on Facebook, and I'll send you a link to download it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
right.
Have a good rest of the summer and a really Gewalt Elul.
Thank you. You
Okay.
too.
Bye, Lorelai.